Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I'm so happy to be with you again today as we consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I'm talking about how safety nutrients can help break the cycle of anxiety. Now, these days, and by these days, I mean maybe the last 3 decades or so, we talk a lot about nutrients. We talk about nutrition. We talk about foods, and we usually speak about nutrients being physical nutrients, vitamins and minerals and proteins and carbohydrates, fats. And today, I want to open nutrients up even more and talk about emotional nutrients, nutrients that can help us all feel safer and more secure. This is key to healing your hypersensitive amygdala and bringing anxiety down to what is normal to be alarmed about, to have fear about, and to not live with it chronically. You know what it means to the hypersensitive amygdala to feel safe? Yes, it means that it can stand down, it can go back to sleep, and it can wake up when you need it. Now, Dr. Matt Letterman, known for his work on emotional well-being and connection, uses the term safety nutrients to describe emotional and relational experiences that contribute to a sense of psychological and emotional safety. Now, these nutrients are akin to the essential nutrients our body needs to function optimally, but are instead vital nutrients for our emotional health. Now, if you want to hear more about Dr. Letterman, you can hear my conversation with him on episode 1104 and 1105. It was 2 parts, and I would love for you to listen to it. He's a very interesting and delightful person. And one of our group members, after listening to those episodes, had mentioned his safety nutrients in our private Facebook group. And I thought it would be an excellent topic for an episode because Dr. Letterman has a fantastic and peaceful way of helping people to heal from all kinds of different things. So today, let's look more closely at his safety nutrients. And I want to thank my group member C for her asking the question in our private Facebook group because although you got answers there, I thought it would be a great thing to talk about, to open this up more even than what Dr. Letterman talked about on the show. So key safety nutrients include the following 5: empathy, connection, acknowledgement, autonomy, and consistency. So if we look at those, empathy, we can see feeling understood and accepted without being judged is a wonderful thing. And to be able to feel and understand another and accept them without judgment is wonderful. So we can see how empathy would begin to bring our parasympathetic nervous system more alive, right? Our parasympathetic nervous system is the side where we rest and digest and we feel peace. So empathy, you can feel that when you feel empathetic. It is a feeling of understanding, of acceptance, and without judgment. And connection, boy, that feels good. Because if we can experience genuine, meaningful relationships with others, when we have a connection, we can begin to feel safe. That feels, again, another place where our parasympathetic nervous system is online. And acknowledgement, I think that's an interesting one. To be acknowledged, to be seen, to be validated for who you are and what you feel. Doesn't that make you feel safe? Doesn't that make you feel like you can relax your shoulders a little bit and maybe take a deeper breath? Yes, acknowledgement is so important and will bring us to that place of peace. Now, autonomy, having the freedom to make choices and to feel in control of your life, seems to be essential for feeling safe. Otherwise, you would feel you are under someone else's thumb. You are living a life that you are not free, and you cannot make choices or have any control. Now, we all have restrictions on us. We all live within communities that have laws, but having autonomy in your life, to be knowing that you have freedom to make choices, is going to, again, let your parasympathetic nervous system be online. And consistency, finally, experiencing reliability in our lives and some predictability in our environment and our relationships can make us feel like we are safe. This is a nutrient that I can see as being extremely helpful for people who have been living with chronic stress and anxiety. Dr. Letterman highlights how these emotional and relational factors can calm the nervous system and create a sense of safety and actually reduce anxiety and stress. Just as a well-nourished body will thrive, a well-nourished sense of safety supports emotional resilience and our overall well-being. We recently had an entire podcast episode on resilience. So if you are interested in becoming more resilient and you have not yet listened to 1107, that episode was called Anxiety Proof Your Life, Cultivating Resilience and Grace. You may want to check that one out too. I'll have a link to that in the show notes also. So I think it would be good to look at some ways that we can actually cultivate safety nutrients in our daily life and our relationships, because often we hear some information like I just talked about and read the 5 safety nutrients and talked a little bit about what they are. Once we get that information, oftentimes we just feel like, I got it. Okay, that's it. But what really needs to happen is we need to work on what we are learning in order to find ourselves living more calm and peaceful lives. And work on it, I like to use the word practice. I like to practice doing these things because we don't always get it perfect and it's never really done. So we are just practicing. We are working on ourselves. So let's look at how we can cultivate some of these things and actually work on it or practice it in our lives. Let's look at empathy first. We could practice active listening. One of the things we can do is to give our full attention to other people when we are in listening situations, and we can reflect back what we hear, and we can validate the other person's feelings. For example, you could say to someone, "That sounds really overwhelming. I can see why you'd feel that way." We're not giving them something to do or pushing them to give us more information, but we are letting them know that they have our attention and we are reflecting back what we heard and validating the feelings that they are expressing. We could actually begin to notice and name our own feelings without judgment. Boy, if we are judging people, we are usually judging ourselves the hardest. So notice and name your own feelings. This is self-empathy. For example, you might say to yourself, like I said, you want to own the feeling, you want to notice it, you want to own it, but you want to do that without judgment. And here's the example. I'm feeling really tired and irritable today, and that's okay. Because what would we normally say to ourselves? I'm always really tired and irritable. This is just too much. I can't continue like this. We're so hard on ourselves. So try to be a little bit more gentle and give yourself some self-empathy. Another thing in empathy that we could do is to seek empathetic spaces, meaning surrounding ourselves with people who make us feel heard, who make us feel understood. To be around people like that is incredibly healing. So you may have to seek this out. It may not be available just at the drop of the hat or out your door. So check that out yourself and see if you can find some spaces around you with people who help you to feel heard and understood. Now let's move on to connection. How can we work on connection? How can we practice connection and cultivate it in our lives? We could spend focused, uninterrupted time with loved ones, even if it's short. We can put away our devices and actually be present in the conversations or the activity. And this would be looking to have more quality over quantity. It doesn't have to be going off on a 1-week vacation with our loved ones or people that we care about, but we can have shorter times if we can increase the quality by having the time be uninterrupted by our devices and actually be present with them. And we can express gratitude. It's really important to let people know how much you value them. This is going to make you feel amazing. For example, you could say to someone, I really appreciate how you're always there to listen. They may not know that you know that they are listening, and that can be very helpful. To express gratitude helps everybody involved. Have that be a way that you are cultivating connection. And finally, you could join communities, different communities or groups that are aligned with your interests or your values. On one of our group calls the other day, one of the members was talking about starting a meetup group because they are in a new neighborhood. What a fabulous idea, right? Take the initiative to find groups that are aligned with your interests or your values. Could be like book clubs or support groups, volunteer organizations, or an athletic kind of group. Join something that is aligned with your interests. That's how you can become more connected and begin to feel safer. Now, the next one that Dr. Letterman talks about is acknowledgement. How can we add this to our life? How can we cultivate it and make acknowledgement a part of our practice? Acknowledge progress, your progress, others' progress. Celebrate the small wins. Now, this is often easier to do for other people than it is for ourselves, but I want you to do this for yourself too. But for another, you might say, I noticed how you stayed calm in that situation. That's really a big deal. Acknowledge when you see that someone did something wonderful, no matter how small it is. Celebrate with them and celebrate with yourself. And one of the ways you can do that for yourself, or self-acknowledgement, is to write down your daily accomplishments in your journal. You know, I love the journal. Or the moments that you handled something really well, even if they feel small to you. This is your journal. You don't need anyone else to read it. Please acknowledge your wins and celebrate them. And finally, with acknowledgement, you can see what your language is doing. Use affirming language. Use it in conversations and recognize when someone's strengths or efforts have been something that you can affirm. For an example, you could say, I can see how much effort you'd put into this. It really shows. Why we don't do this more easily, I don't know, but we don't. So I want you to have some awareness around your language and to use affirming language. This helps the people around you, which also helps you. Now, number 4 for Dr. Letterman's list here is autonomy. And we can cultivate this in our lives also. And we can do it for others and for ourselves. We want to respect others' choices. When someone makes a decision, we want to resist the urge to fix it or advise them unless it is invited, unless we are being asked. This can be hard, especially if you are a parent, because you have been advising people their whole little lives, and then someday we have to let go of that, and it can be difficult. But we can practice it. We can cultivate this. We can also set boundaries. We can advocate for our own needs without guilt. If someone asks for help, we can say, for an example, I'd love to help you, but I need to take care of myself right now. And we want to do that without guilt. It is perfectly fine for you to take care of yourself. If you don't do it, no one else will. And finally, for autonomy, we want to create choices. We want to involve others in our decision-making to give them a sense of control, like asking which day works better for you, Tuesday or Friday, or if we're meeting for lunch, do you prefer earlier or later lunch? Especially if it is not of paramount importance to us. Let's involve others in our lives in our decision-making, because this gives them a sense of control. And it also opens up that kind of conversation with them where we will be receiving that also. But remember to take care of yourself and to say no when you need to. Keep those boundaries strong. I like to come back to that because often people with anxiety or are chronically stressed and have way too much on their plate will just go along to get along and do whatever. And then it just exhausts us both mentally and physically. Now, finally, consistency. How are we going to cultivate some consistency in our life? We're going to keep our own word. We're going to follow through on our promises, big or small, because reliability builds trust. And we're going to also establish routines by having simple habits, having our morning walk or a weekly call with a friend. This can create a sense of predictability, and this feels so good. Our amygdala will feel so relaxed and stand down when there is an established routine. So see if you can work on that. And be transparent. When plans or situations change, communicate openly to maintain trust with others. So some of the things that you can add into those ideas is journaling. You can reflect on the moments of connection, acknowledgement, or autonomy that you had in your day. You can have a mindful check-in with yourself. You can ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe right now? Maybe you want to journal that, or maybe you just want to ask it internally. But do take that pause and ask yourself, what do I need to feel safe right now? And listen to the answer. And you can focus your energy on people in your life who offer these nutrients and limit your time with those people who deplete you. Obviously, there may be some where you don't have a lot of choices. That's okay. But if you do have a choice, you can focus your energy on the people who can offer you these nutrients as much as you are offering them out. These practices foster a sense of emotional and relational safety, which creates an environment where you and the people around you can all thrive. And remember, if you haven't listened to the episode with Dr. Lederman, it is 11:04 and 11:05, and the links will be in the description. I hope that today's episode was helpful. And join us in the Anxiety Coaches Podcast group coaching membership if you want to have access to more peace and calm every day. The link is in the show notes. I hope to see you in the group soon. And now for today's quote. How you show up is what affects the lens of how you see the world. When you're walking around out in the world, you're going to be searching for either threat or safety, and your physiological state will determine that. And that's from Dr. Matt Letterman. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.